their decision making about getting engaged in an action might be aided by looking at what people are doing and thinking through your mind, like, have they considered these things and where can I get engaged?
And also feel free to eat brownies. Important part of training, snacks. Okay, so the next step, developing your tactic. This is really important. I don't know if you guys are familiar with like goal, strategy, and tactics being separate things. So I'll just give a little example. So for example, your goal might be like to shut down X coal plant in your community, right? And so one of your strategies would be nonviolent direct action, and your tactic would be a specific blockade or sort of a specific day of action. Does that make sense? Cool. Okay, so know the history and identify the opportunity. It's pretty clear, you know, just know what's happened before and what's going on at that particular time. Choose a specific tactic. That's important to bring people together and not have everyone do different things. Determine your audience, sort of the same thing as your target. Create visuals and audio. Like Rafael was saying, they're going to try and get some huge banners. Super important for public education. And choose a location and scout it. Scouting is something that's really important just to determine logistics, like how much space do you have, how many people do you need or want, and you know, what's the public space like, private space like. Determining that in advance is really important. Make an action plan and practice it. Practicing, like if you're going to do a physical action like a blockade, practice is really important so you get used to what it feels like to link arms or however you're planning on doing that. So when the moment comes, you're not like overwhelmed with all these sensations. And then debrief, super important, and we'll be debriefing at the end of this training too. Questions?
Are there any, is some of this training available as YouTubes or something?
I watched a couple videos that were like specific training videos, and I can send those to you maybe later today if you're interested.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So action planning part 2. If you'll turn the page, looks like this. To the chart. It says page 9 on the bottom.
Ooh, okay.
So this is really important to have everyone know what they're responsible for. That way you don't have one person running around trying to do 3 things at once and one person sort of wandering around not sure. Okay, so you have the action team. Those are like people you would say are risking arrest or have the potential for arrest. The outreach team, those people might be doing outreach to media or, you know, allies, other people that you want to work with. Legal support team, that includes legal observers. That can also include like a police liaison, jail support, and those type of roles. A media team, traditional and social. Social media is playing a huge role in organizing right now. Even just something as simple as posting a picture on Facebook can affect like thousands of people's knowledge of an issue. So that's becoming really important. Logistics and support. If you need a permit for a march, if you need some paperwork filled out, if you need $40 for the event fee, you need to have someone who's bottom lining, making sure that happens. And then there's additional roles like someone to scout, someone to raise funds, researchers, and you can read over this again if you're planning an action in the future or if you're just curious. There's a lot of different things that are action specific. Like right now, RAMPS, Radical Action for Mountain People's Survival, which is a group in West Virginia, they're planning a huge blockade of a mountaintop removal coal mining site. And so they really need like medical teams, right? So like emergency medical personnel who can help out. Whereas if you're doing like an action, you know, like walking around the Grand America Hotel, you might not necessarily have such a high priority for that. Questions? Cool.
Let me make a point on those. For just this upcoming week, there's probably, well, I know there are already action teams that have formed that aren't here this weekend. There's outreach teams. Half of you or a third of you are already part of the legal support team, either through the ACLU or the National Lawyers Guild. And I think Rebecca Hall is going to be facilitating that. And then there's other things in here that you could probably fill the role of without being assigned to it or asked to do it. Okay, so media, you're able to do that however you want to and however you witness. Logistics and support, if you see that, you know, people are engaged in an action and then signs are left, well, you can go pick up the signs and put them somewhere where they can be collected later. Same thing with researchers. Adam had an interesting idea of like, what about doing research about how people are perceiving this? You know, could you be talking to people on the side and what they think and handing them flyers? Those are all like in the moment kind of decision making about what roles you might be able to play, even though somebody didn't say, hey, can you do this or can you do that? So just kind of be looking through there and be mindful of what ways you can engage in things that might help the overall success or might even help de-escalate things.
Okay, so the next page, which has this whole picture on it, part 3, developing a nonviolent action agreement. This is really important because like we talked about yesterday, some of you guys weren't there, but that's fine. People have different definitions of what nonviolence means versus violence and sort of what's in that gray area. So it's important if you're working with a team to sit down and say, what does nonviolence mean to this team and how are we going to practice that? And we'll be actually practicing doing that in a little bit, a couple minutes. If you're risking arrest, these are really good resources for you to have. We'll also be sending out a couple more resources after this training is over, and always feel free to contact me with us if you have questions in the future. So, more questions about that?